Hey guys, tonight we're stepping through velvet curtains into a world most history books barely whisper about. We're following courtesans, not the glittering, painted versions that men saw in candlelight, but the real people they became once the doors closed and the audience disappeared. This isn't a hero's journey. It's a complicated, sometimes aching, sometimes hilarious look into the lives of women who navigated power, beauty, and brutal politics with terrifying grace. You'll see their laughter, their secrets, their jealousies, their strength. And yes, you probably wouldn't survive this, because being one of them required a stamina most of us wouldn't last a week with. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I always appreciate hearing where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are, so drop your city and the hour in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You hear the soft snick of the sliding screen behind you. The perfume of sandalwood and crushed cherry petals lingers faintly in the air, already beginning to cool from the heat of the evening. The laughter from the tea house floor below is distant now, muffled by velvet-lined walls and thick woven mats. It's over for the night. He's gone, finally. The air changes the moment the final guest's footsteps fade down the hallway. The mask doesn't just come off, it shatters. The meticulously crafted smile, held for hours until the muscles in your cheeks screamed, finally dissolves. The perfect posture, the one that makes your spine feel like a rod of iron, collapses. You slump onto a cushion, the silk of your robes feeling heavy and restrictive, no longer a costume of allure, but a cage. From the next room, you hear a sigh, then a quiet curse. A fellow courtesan, Hannah, enters. Her elaborate hairpins are already half pulled out, her face streaked where she's rubbed away the thick white makeup. That old general, she grumbles, flopping down beside you. He droned on about his youthful victories for 3 hours. If I have to hear about the Battle of Sekigahara one more time, I will personally reenact it on his bald head with my fan. You can't help but chuckle. A real, unforced sound that feels foreign after a night of polite titters. This is the real beginning of the night. Not the performance for the patrons, but the unwinding, the debriefing, the return to self in the hidden world of women. This space, the *OKIYA*, or the inner apartments, is a sanctuary. Here, the rigid hierarchy of the tea house momentarily blurs. Seasoned veterans and young apprentices, the *MIKO*, exist in a state of shared exhaustion and camaraderie. A younger girl, barely 16, comes in with a tray of cool barley tea. Her name is Kiku, and her eyes are wide, still absorbing the whirlwind of her new life. He asked me to play the shamisen tonight, she whispers, a tremor in her voice. My hands were shaking so much, I thought I'd dropped the plectrum. An older woman, the mother of the house, who has seen it all, pats Kiku's hand gently. You did well, she says, her voice low and soothing. The first time is always the hardest. Remember what I told you. Focus on the strings, not his eyes. The music is your shield. This is the lifeblood of their existence, shared knowledge. Passed down not in formal lessons, but in these quiet, stolen moments. How to deflect an inappropriate advance with a witty poem. How to pour sake in a way that makes your wrist look delicate and graceful. How to read a man's intentions not from his words, but from the way he holds his cup. These were not just tricks of the trade. They were survival skills, honed over generations. They developed a secret language, a lexicon of glances, gestures, and coded phrases. A slight tilt of the head could mean this man is dangerous. A particular way of folding a napkin could signal, "I need help. Get me out of here." In a world where their voices were often silenced, they created their own dialogue, invisible and indecipherable to the men they entertained. Their creativity wasn't just for show. In their private hours, it became an outlet, a form of therapy. You might find one woman hunched over a scroll, her brush flying across the paper as she paints not a serene landscape for a client, but a fierce, stormy sea, mirroring the tempest in her own heart. Another might be composing poetry, her verses filled with a raw, unfiltered emotion that would be considered unseemly for a patron's ears. These were not just hobbies. They were acts of rebellion, of reclaiming their own narratives. They were artists, poets, and musicians in their own right. Their talents sharpened by their profession, but their souls expressed in secret. Their art was a testament to the fact that they were more than just beautiful objects. They were complex, feeling individuals with rich inner lives. But this sanctuary was not always peaceful. The competition was fierce. In a world where a woman's value was tied to her beauty, popularity, and the wealth of her patrons, jealousy could be a corrosive force. A stolen patron, a more beautiful kimono, a whispered compliment from the tea-house owner, any of these could ignite a feud. Sabotage was not unheard of. A misplaced hairpin right before a major appointment, a spilled cup of tea on a priceless silk robe. The politics of the court of Versailles had nothing on the intricate, high-stakes drama of the flower and willow world. These women were not just rivals. They were businesswomen in a cutthroat industry. Their livelihoods, their futures, and even their chances at one day buying their freedom depended on their ability to stay on top. Every smile could hide a dagger, and every ally could become a competitor overnight. And yet, for every act of rivalry, there were 10 acts of profound kindness. They were a sisterhood, bound by a shared fate that no one on the outside could ever truly understand. They nursed each other through sickness, their hands gentle as they wiped fevered brows. They held each other as they wept over lost loves, the ones they weren't allowed to have, the secret affairs of the heart that were the most dangerous game of all. They celebrated each other's small victories with genuine joy, sharing sweets and sake when one of them received a particularly lavish gift or a prestigious new patron. They were each other's family, memory keepers and confessors. They knew which smile was real and which was for show. They knew the stories behind the scars, both visible and invisible. In a world that sought to own them, they belonged to each other. The nights were long, filled with these shared moments. They would mend torn kimonos, their needles flashing in the lamplight, their conversation a low, comforting hum. They would practice their dances, not for an audience, but for each other, offering gentle corrections and encouragement. They would read fortunes, laugh at bawdy jokes, and dream of a future beyond the walls of the tea-house. Some dreamed of a wealthy patron who might buy them out and make them a wife. Others dreamed of owning their own tea-house one day, becoming the matriarchs themselves. And some, in the quietest, most secret corners of their hearts, dreamed of simply being free, of walking in the sun without a painted face, of loving whom they chose, of being just a woman, not a courtesan. These hidden lives were the truth of their existence. The glittering performances were just the cover of the book. The real story was written in the ink of their private art, spoken in the code of their secret language, and lived in the complex tapestry of their relationships with each other. They were not tragic victims or exotic butterflies. They were strategists, survivors, and artists, fighting for their dignity and their humanity in a world that tried to deny them both. They were a sisterhood forged in the crucible of a demanding and often cruel profession, finding strength, solace, and a sense of self in the moments when the men weren't around. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey tonight. It's in understanding these hidden stories that we get a much fuller, more human picture of the past. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the forgotten corners of history. Your support truly means the world. Take care, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.